Last week I went to the post office to pick up a package, and I was with my three younger children. And when I got there, then I was really happy because I took a number, and I saw by the numbers that I only had 10 numbers to go. So I was like, great, I'm going to be in and out of here in 5 minutes. But what actually happened was it turned out that I got there right during all of the postal clerk's lunch break. So 5 minutes passed, and I still hadn't got my package. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, and still no package. So, so basically, I was sort of feeling frustrated, but I didn't say anything. But then the sort of man who looked like sort of a man in a suit, who looked like a lawyer, gets up and he says, he says, "What's going on here? Where's the manager? Manager, come out!" So the manager was in a back office, got the manager to come out, and he says, "What's going on here? I've been waiting here for half an hour, nothing's moving," and like the numbers really weren't moving at all. Like since I'd gotten there, it took like over the course of a half an hour, maybe the numbers had moved like maybe like 5 numbers. So the manager turned to there was only one woman, a clerk, who was working, and she explained that she was working all alone, and there was nothing that she could do because what had happened, and she explained, and I saw, was that there was an older Russian man, like a Russian immigrant, who he had. What I saw was that he had brought like a box of books. I guess he had self-published a book about his family, and he had about 100 of his books, and he had brought them in a big box, and the box had just totally fallen apart. So the Russian immigrant, he had bought like 2 smaller boxes. The thing is that the instructions of how to put together these boxes, it's not so complicated, but it's in Hebrew. So this man, he wasn't able to figure out how to put together the boxes. So he just sort of so basically in the meantime, he's trying to figure out the instructions to put together these boxes, totally not understanding the instructions. In the meantime, there's 20 people just waiting and getting really frustrated that he's not able to put together the boxes, and we're all waiting for him and whatever. So the lawyer was getting even more upset, and and he's going to call this person, he's going to call the supervisor, he's going to call the national office. And at that moment, something interesting happened. That I guess is the point of why I'm telling this story is while we were there was a man who was sitting across the room, and he was a Hasidic man, and from the moment he walked in, I saw that there was something a little bit off about him. He looked a little bit strange, a little bit crazy. Okay, and just to explain, so he had spent the past half an hour. So I wanted to demonstrate for you what this man was doing. So this Hasidic man, this is the number. These are the numbers that they give out in the post office. I brought one home because I wanted to show you what he did. So he spent the entire half an hour like this. with the number in his mouth, and he sort of looked around. Everything was going on with the number in his mouth. Okay, so what happened at that point was everyone's getting very upset, and the lawyers yelling, and everyone's getting really frustrated. This crazy man, the crazy chassid with the number in his mouth, walks over to the man the Russian man is trying to put together his boxes, and he, without saying anything, he picks up the instructions and starts explaining them to the Russian man, and he starts helping him to do it. He helps, the crazy chassid helps the man to put the boxes together, helps him move his books over, and so at that point, the clerks came, a few of the clerks came back from their lunch break, and I got my package and I left. But for the next few hours, I was thinking about the crazy chassid. I was thinking about this whole situation. And it got me thinking, there's so many problems in the world. There's so much that's going wrong. We learn in Jewish mysticism that it says the Shekhinah is in the Galut, that the divine presence, that God's divine presence, is in exile ever since for the past 2,000 years since the temple was destroyed. There's so much which means that Hashem is crying over the brokenness of the world. There's so much suffering, and there's so much going wrong, not only in the world as a whole, even just in the Jewish community. When I became religious 20 years ago, it looked to me like the religious community, everything's so perfect and everything's so wonderful and there's nothing wrong. But as over the years pass, and you see and you hear more, and you hear more stories in your own life, and you read more, and you hear about what's actually going on in our communities, you know, religious communities are wonderful and they really are superior communities. This is a superior way of life, I think. But there's a lot wrong. There's a lot in our communities which needs fixing. And I thought about it. I was thinking, wait, am I the lawyer? Am I the lawyer who's like yelling and saying, why is this wrong and what's going wrong and da 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 da? Or am I like the crazy chassid who like actually tries to do something to help? Who actually tries to do something, you know, get up out of his seat and actually do something to fix the situation. Okay, so I want to tell you another story. Something from last week that I went to. I've been going recently to a really wonderful hardware store. So usually you don't talk about wonderful hardware stores, but this is really a wonderful hardware store. It's a very unusual hardware store in that, and it's not owned by a man. It's owned by a woman, which I think I've never seen a hardware store like that in Israel. And not only a woman, but a British woman, a very lovely, like kind-hearted British woman who owns a hardware store. But it's a very special hardware store in that not only in that respect, but also her goal is to be like a mall within this little hardware store. So every corner of this hardware store has just all sorts of wonderful things, like whatever you're looking for, and you would think that you'd have to make a trip to the mall to get it. Well, she has it in her little hardware store. So, so I was there last week, and I noticed that behind that behind where she was standing on the wall, there was this interesting sort of saying. There's like a paper with like something printed on it. So I read it. It was in English. And actually, I posted this last week on my blog. So to some of you, this will sound familiar. It said, "Winners say it may be difficult, but it's possible. Losers say it may be possible, but it's too difficult. Winners always have a program. Losers always have an excuse. Winners see an answer for every problem. Losers see a problem in every answer. That's why winners are always part of the answer, and losers are always part of the problem." So I love this. And actually, I asked if I could borrow a pen to like write this down to share with you Jewish moms. I thought it was such a lovely thought. So I asked her, like, what's the story behind this? Where'd you get this? So she smiled, and she said, I'll tell you something. She said, my son just turned 27, and he just moved. Unfortunately, he just moved abroad. He's living in New York, and I had actually, and she explained to me, she said, I had actually given him this paper with this saying when he was 7 years old. And I had totally forgotten about it. But now, just a few months ago, when my son was leaving for New York, he gave it back to me in like this perfect condition, and he said, Ima, he said, I have kept this, and I've kept it underneath my pillow for the past 20 years. I love it. And he said, now I'm going away, and I want you, and I want you to keep it for me. I want you to keep it safe for me. So I thought this was like a wonderful thought. Just like it was very wonderful that this mother, that she had raised her son with this message, like that instead of cursing the darkness, like that there's so much broken in the world, there's so much going wrong, instead of just complaining and saying, well, it's terrible, it's awful, this is just an awful situation, to actually, instead of curse the darkness, to actually light a candle. And she had raised her son, and it really, and this message had stayed with him for so many years. I'm sure that in a way, this saying underneath his pillow had I don't know the son, but I assume it shaped it's at least somewhat shaped who he is today. So I want to bless all of us. There's so much going wrong. There's so many things. There's so many reasons to curse the darkness. But I want to bless all of us, that we ourselves, that we should raise our children, that instead of cursing the darkness, instead of being that lawyer who's getting up and yelling and to be the crazy chassid who gets up and actually, and actually lends a hand to help the situation. And bless all of you, Jewish moms, with an amazing week.